I'm just going to ask one final question, which is really looking, and it may be brief because we may not have an entire sort of answer to this, but how does the World Food Programme deal with this sort of this tidal wave of need, I suppose, around ESG? Are you familiar with that, with your role in the facilities managers space?
Yes, so on the E components, that is where majority of our focus is on to start with. We currently have, because the environmental team sits within the facilities group, so we have direct impacts on that. We have an environmental plan of action, which was implemented in 2017. The whole idea of that was to have a program that is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So our target is for 2030. We're looking at reducing our carbon emissions by 45% by 2030. We have very aggressive targets. We're looking at different ways when it comes to the HVAC systems that we use, how we run our facilities, what are the carbon emissions for each of our facilities when we do the annual reporting for our greenhouse gas emissions. What are those targets and what does the trend look like, and are we on course to meet our 2030 45% target? We're looking at travel as well, and as I mentioned briefly earlier, one of the triggers from the COVID is looking at our travel patterns, because our organization as a whole, we do a lot of travel. That's the nature of the work that we do, but also re-looking at that and seeing how can we reduce the travel so that we reduce our carbon emissions through our travel. That is something that we also looking at, and we also looking at the 45% targets on that. We are actually on travel. We are on target to meet that 45% reduction. So which is a very good thing. When it comes to energy efficiency, we are doing a lot in that sphere as well. For instance, some of the locations that we have outside of the major cities, off the grid, as I mentioned, Nigeria, for instance, we are currently implementing a huge solar energy program in Nigeria locations. It's a public-private partnership that we have also with some Scandinavian government organizations that will help us to ensure that we use clean, renewable energy in our facilities as much as possible. And the little things to ensure that we don't really just offset our carbon emissions, but we want to reduce the carbon emissions also as much as possible. You realize I'm moving around because I realize my
Yeah. You're running out of the power. You've got the power.
I'm talking about clean and renewable energy, and then I realize that I'm running out of power. This is a problem with live interview. We couldn't have paused and continued.
So, that's true. That's true. We should. Yeah, but sometimes, you know what, Christa, it makes it more real. Just go back one step for me. And you said you're aiming to, was it 25% lower carbon emissions? 45%. Wow, that's
it's aggressive target. It's very aggressive.
And that's 45% reduction throughout the whole of the World Food Programme organization, or just within the buildings?
The organization as a whole, everywhere we have facilities.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the end of the year, at the end of 2030, when we look at our overall corporate data, we want to have that 45% target overall. So of course, there will be some places where it will be more, others will be less, but it's for the organization as a whole, we're looking at 45%. Yeah.
That's fascinating. I mean, it is an aggressive target, but I mean, this is the joy of it, really, isn't it? And we can make those cuts, and it's up to us to really drive those cuts home. But that's not a long time. So good luck with that one. But again, just for those of you who've tuned in into this as an edit, I mean, that is 680 offices over 125 countries. So there's a lot of work to do that Christa is responsible for.